We are. He is MIA. Well, shit. I got a Valkyrie ad. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Mind Clash Podcast, episode 50. 50, big 50. We are here on live on stream, a little bit late. Apologize for that. If you're joining us in the live version, if you're joining us in podcast, it's anytime where you are. And we lost Kael. Don't know where he is. If anyone sees him, send him to the stream. But in his lieu, we are joined by our Alliance Tournament panel of guests in an attempt to find some pilots from the final weekend. They all apparently live in Euro time zone, except for one, claims Casper. But we are joined by the experts who spent hours upon hours, upon hours, upon days, upon days, upon days, practicing for this year's Alliance Tournament, and probably every year's Alliance Tournament. So they know the ins and outs of why these ships won and lost this weekend, and we will cover the matches as they went, hopefully with very few spoilers. And we'll all culminate up to the final match, which we'll watch live on stream, and we'll cover it all. We'll start at the top. King Voodoo, introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? Just here to give our little spin on the final weekend. You know, something we all put a lot of time and effort into this year, and just want to see it come help these guys out and cover this final weekend. It's pretty exciting. Some little twist to the plots this final weekend. We'll go ahead and cover it all tonight.
There was many twists, many turns. Cyclo.
My name's Cyclo Hexanol. In game, I'm the CEO of the Dickwad squad, and I was the Rote Kapelle captain for AT15.
Excellent. Helser, I'm not even going to pronounce your last name. Let's call you Hels. Tell us who you are.
I'm a decade-old player. Been with Rote way too long. Reliably mid-tier FC and shit poster.
Beautiful. Sakaras.
Hello. I am AT pilot. Give a good perspective on logistics in the AT. And I've been playing the game since about a month after release. So I've pretty much been all over EVE and with everyone and done everything and made and burned bridges. So just here to lend my knowledge.
Beautiful. And I'm Meredudd, pilot from Iron Armada. Once again, don't know where Kael is. Coming to you on a busy week in my real life, packing all my shit up. Only 2-3 more shows from this house, and then eventually I'll have my own room for my own podcasting needs, and sewing, obviously, because I have a wife and I have to split everything with her. But I spent many an hour watching the Alliance Tournament this weekend. It was a great group of matches. Very few teams left in this final weekend. Many teams didn't make it this far.
It was a bad joke or good joke. I'm not sure which. There can only be so many.
I only have bad jokes. Don't worry. But we will just jump right into the coverage, as we do not have constructed notes this week due to Kael hoarding them. So we will move into the coverage. So on day 7, which was Saturday's coverage, we had CCB Antiquarian, Chocolate Rain, Jintan, and CCB Guard joining us after the first match on the commentary booth. And then we had Jin looking super classy as usual.
So about this, I actually was engaged in some of the coverage this year for once. That's something before we go into these matches, that I actually felt that the broadcasters did a really good job of actually engaging me. They had a lot of energy. It made me want to watch it.
They were quite good. I mean, Jin did a hell of a lot of research to make sure he was up on what was going on. Chocolate is an experienced commentator from the Event T stream. Shout out to Chocolate Rain for trying to pull us in some cool guests this weekend. And I mean, moderator, despite his puns, is a great commentator.
He's a very knowledgeable guest. He's kind of slanted towards the Tuskas, and the elite of the elite, but he does a good job of breaking down what's going on during the matches, from a pilot's perspective.
Yeah, I think that's where he really shines. Is that more analytical coverage?
And I mean, Elise is just a beautiful human being. I could just listen to him speak for a good amount of time.
You still got a poster of him on the wall?
I mean, I took it down because I'm moving, but yeah.
He's like the John Madden of the AT coverage. He's the guy with the chuckles and the haha Brett Favre over and over and over again. He's been there. He's as a pilot made some critical boundary violations, but overall he does a pretty good job. Has pretty good knowledge of what's going on. Although he does guess sometimes, like the blasters on the Drakes. He'll kind of have that little brain fart every now and then.
To be an edgelord, you got to take it to the edge.
Mm-hmm. Edge of glory, baby. You got to ride the corona of the eclipse is what I'm going to call it now.
Damn rights. All right. Good commentary. Yeah, those guys. Everyone is very lucky that they get to go to Reykjavik and be there live, and I think it adds a lot to the stream. I know it's not super cheap to fly those people out there to have that commentary, but it's great to see CCB putting in the time and effort into this not official piece of content. It's part of EVE Online, but spoiler alert, there were like 8,000 people watching the finals, so obviously an important part of their gameplay and their ethos.
You can't much more spoiler alert than what CCP did when they posted their stream video up on Twitch, where it said congratulations and then named the champions. When I went to go watch it on the final day, I was like, son of a bitch. Way to go.
Yeah, I did tune in to day 8 after I came back after running out to do some errands, and it was the last 5 minutes of the last match.
Oh, that must have been wonderful.
Not mad at all.
That was an amazing match, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
We're going to watch it all live, don't worry. All right, let's start on day 7, if you're ready.
All right.
We had Brave Alliance, Darlings of the Alliance Tournament, versus Skill Yourself, Edgelords of the Alliance Tournament. I was rooting for Brave in this match, but it wasn't to be Brave's day. Brave bought the Mimitar Rush, double Sleipnir, Bassi, double Gila, Ferox, double Moa, and double Manti. And Skill Yourself brought the Flag Balgorn, 2 Fleet Hurricanes, Excure, Harbinger, Vigilant, double Arbitrator, and some bombers. Pretty standard meta fleet setups, you guys believe?
I believe the Brave setup is somewhat what they would call the, I think it's the Razorback. And then the kind of setup you're seeing from Skill U in this one is kind of their signature. Lots of battle cruisers with the T1 Logi. That's not uncommon from them. They actually often bring that in preference over the Oniros. Gives them more points to spend on the battle cruisers and things like that. Backed up, of course, by the Balgorn and a Rail Vigilant. The interesting thing that they brought here that I don't think we saw in the past from them is the arbitrators for the tracking disruptors, which might, based on my experience in the past against a gun team, the arbitrators might have helped them to carry that through.
Well, there's also a fair amount of control difference on the skill side as well. You can track and disrupt down one Sleipnir and web down another. That Mimitar Rush kind of falls off at that point, and you're dealing with Gilas. And you can put a Basilisk out of cap relatively quickly as well. So, I mean, the control is definitely one-sided on this. And it's just unfortunate. Last time we talked about the oh shit moments when you hit the field. This definitely is probably an oh shit moment when you see a Vigilant and a Balgorn and you go, fuck, our Sleipnirs just aren't getting out.
I mean, that's also kind of part of the Razorback comp, right? You have a lot of the shield DPS on the field with the Sleipnirs. I think some of them actually run dual Feroxes. And then, I don't know why they would want to bring the bombers against the skill team, which is a team that completely exclusively has brought the armor battle cruiser setups that will just delete those bombers regardless of what reps you have on them in the beginning.
Yeah, a fleet cane's tracking pretty much any frigate that is operating under an MWD or is slower than 2K.
Yeah,
It's just
mix
gonna
that
it's
with
gonna
the
catch it.
flag Balgorn web, and it's just gonna die.
So you got your arbitrators there as well, and you look at every ship that in the line there for skill U, and just the amount of rep bots they can bring for that Tech 1 logistics. Arbitrator has 3 flights and mediums on it, plus the EWAR rack. So I mean, like they could bring some damage, they could bring some EWAR, and they can bring some rep bots to keep that executor up. And that's what they've done mostly is try to keep that executor up for as long as possible, or to try to get that logic trade going in the beginning.
Yeah, you just look at it and like they have the Balgorn to stiff arm the really high close range DPS of the Sleps, and basically they just worked through the comp. They had enough battle cruisers to break the Basilisk. Obviously, Mana Cores die first, and then from there they just worked through the comp, starting with the next range DPS that is actually effective, being the Gilas, and just moved on from there.
So, darling of the darlings, Yukio was dead pretty quickly in their Basilisk. Probably the most known Logi pilot of this weekend. And yeah, that was the end for Brave. Brave was eliminated as Skill Yourself moved on. It was 100-0. Not exactly close, but
So from a logic perspective as well, you hate when a flag Balgorn hits the field, you really get frustrated with like any kind of rush comp where your main damage line is pulling forward, because if they are not on the ball at managing their range from you, they drag you into critical range of the Balgorn's everything. And once one control gets on you, you're toast. Everything's gonna crawl on you at that point. So it skill probably just 86, the 2 mana cores, and then by that time they had caught the Bassi, who was probably having to pull in a little too close to try to keep a team that was splitting apart wrapped up.
all right, let's move on to our second match, which is obviously the finals from AT13. We had Tuskers versus Hydra Reloaded. This was a high-stakes match. Obviously, most of these matches on the beginning of Day 7 are elimination matches, so gotta win to stay alive. So Tuskers banned the Guardian, the Raibisu, and the Oniros, and Hydra banned the Blackbird, the Vulture, and the Brutix Navy issue. Not to be dissuaded by their own ban of the Brutix Navy issues, Hydra brought the first iteration of what we will hear many times today, which was dubbed on stream by Jinten as the Octodad setup, which this is 8 battlecruisers. So in this iteration had 2 Navy Harbingers, 2 Brutixes, 2 Ferox, and 2 Vexors, which counter as good support and good utility between the damage and the rep drones.
You started to see that battlecruiser core, grow. I think we brought 7 in our match versus on the second weekend, and as the weekend went along and drones became less prevalent during the week, the battlecruiser rose in popularity because you have normally large drone bays on these ships. You get to the point where they can just delete the Logi on the other side and just like make it a non-factor. So in place of bringing a Logi, they just eliminate the Logi on the other side, make them lose 17 points and the ability to rep themselves, and just bring overwhelming damage and just crack it. The enemy's will of fight by about 3 minutes into the fight.
Yeah, I remember the first match I think it was the first match Hydra had in this tourney where they actually got knocked down. They actually brought I believe 7 battle cruiser comp with it was either an Executor or an Augur Logi, and they actually lost that one, potentially due to some rep bot mismanagement or just getting unlucky with the comp matchup. I can't remember exactly what the Templars team brought, but it was interesting to see them bring out this 8 BC comp with Logiless setup and kind of set the tone for the meta for the following, or the entire weekend, really.
So Tuskers brought a Balgorn, Fleet Hurricane, 2 Navy Harbingers, an Execure, a Prophecy, a Malice, which is an AT-14 frigate, 2 Vexors, and a Purifier. This is a lot of money from the Tuskers go.
Yeah. and I'm sure they were not very happy to see exactly what they were facing, at least as the match kept going on, namely because those battle cruisers will do a very good job at cleaning up the things like the Purifier. I could see that going down very quickly. The Malice potentially, and they can definitely apply to the Executor, potentially breaking through the rep bots, or even just hazing off the rep bots in a relatively short period of time. The biggest issue to deal with would be that Balgorn in this comp, with the potential for the Balgorn to strong arm some of their DPS away from good ranges, and to go ahead and nude out like the Feroxes, or even better yet, the Navy Harbs and the Harbs, which are very hard on cap already.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but Balgorns really start to pick up momentum later in matches, right? At the 4, at the 6, at the 8-minute match, part of the match, because then they've nuded out multiple people, they've really utilized their webs, they've slowed down the tackle, they're able to support their team in getting them killed. And in this match, our screenshot here that we're pulling information from is at 6 minutes, and Hydra is well in the lead, and Tuskers is wiped from the field.
Right. That little bit of theory right there, that is in fact solid. The longer you leave large amounts of control on field, the weaker the other team becomes, or your team becomes, just due to, like, say, all the ECM cycles that have landed, or the lack of DPS because you're damped, or what have you. But that can somewhat go out the window when you face a comp with 8 battle cruisers that can just get on top of things and delete them, or delete them from range.
So the Balgorn is, its presence is strong throughout the whole match. Now, depending on how it's fit, he may not be able to silence a entire 6, 7, 8, definitely not 8-man battlecruiser core. I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen the fit on that Balgorn, but depending on how it's fit, it may not have all newts, and so therefore it's fighting just to keep one set of battlecruisers down while applying minimal DPS onto another target. So these things have cap boosters. He may never even got the chance to spread the newts across. I've seen a lot of Balgorns tend to do 1 newt, 1 NOS, or 2 newts, 1 NOS. And in that situation, it takes, just to wrangle down 1, it can take 2-3 minutes. And then you get to a second one and you're trying to keep 1 capped out. By the time you get to the third, you just don't have the energy neutralizing capability to keep 3 battle cruisers down at that point. And you got to remember that that's a lot of DPS. They're just able to get a hold of things and erase ships at that point. Losing 1 battle cruiser worth of DPS isn't stopping the wrecking ball from coming through the wall at that point.
Looks like the Balgorn was 58 bill, gunned Balgorn with 2 newts and a NOS. Hels, did you want to say something?
Yeah, there's just no way that it's keeping things capped out.
And yes. Here's the other point too that I think kind of got missed by the announcers and all. You look at every one of those ships on that line. I think, save for the Ferox, you have medium drones. And we talked about the drone meta, from the first couple weekends. Having Tech 2 medium damage bots out of this line is also, even if you get damaged, you're down and you nude it out, you still have lots of DPS. You're talking on the order of 300 DPS per vessel there to apply damage to a target, to get rid of ECM and to get rid of annoying frigates or bombers that you can spread DPS and stretch your Logi's legs out as well.
I think a big reason on why the heavy number of battle cruiser comps end up working is you can ablate some of your battle cruisers, and you already start with a lot of projected DPS, but once you start ablating that, you don't lose all your rep power by, say, losing a Logi boat. You don't lose all your DPS by, say, losing like a rattlesnake. You lose a portion of it. You lose, an eighth of it, or a seventh, or whatever, how many battle cruisers you have. So you're still really combat effective because all your damage is projected. It all tracks really well, or you can fly it well enough to get it to track well, and you're still doing 90, 85% of what you were doing while still killing the enemy. On the flip side of that, to control all of those, as you guys were talking about earlier, if you only have 2 newts on the Balgorn, you're only going to control 1 to 2 other boats. There's 6 more boats out there that are still shooting you. Or say with the webs, you're only controlling 2 of those guys. There's still 6 more guys out there boating around, doing damage, staying alive. So it ablates and it takes damage well in both control and, losing ships, because you don't lose everything with one death.
And Nate, the Nate thing about battle cruisers is they can fit a local micro jump drive. With the drone meta being popular, you've seen it used to great effect in the first couple weekends of being able to use that local MJD, get to MJD beacon, and just stretch the match out for any kind of drone comp that you face with a battle cruiser haul.
I don't think that's generally very common to see in the meta, but if I was facing a team like Slice, I'd definitely have that on my mind.
Facing a team like a Band Apart.
Anybody else I'm facing, I'm not really looking for those MJDs on the battle cruisers all the time, but if I know it's kind of an off-meta team that'll use some off-meta fits, I'll look for that. But yeah, I think what Hels said is hitting the nail right on the head.
Well, to wrap up that match, Hydra Reloaded took that match, eliminating the Tuskers Co., taking their Malice and putting it onto their kill board. Good match, but Tuskers fall, Hydra advances. Next match was Skill Yourself versus NC Dot. Skill Yourself banned the Vindicator, the Curse, and the Raibisu, knowing that Northern Coalition has Raibisus. Northern Coalition banned the Blackbird, the Gila, and the Brutix Navy issue.
So, as much shit as I like to give to Northern Coalition, I think that they looked at the strength of what the Skill Yourself team was doing, and they found a plan to executed it very well. Instead of just going straight for the Logi and tagging down the Logi, because they have the very powerful Executor, they use the Oneros very well as well. I believe the Oneros is Tenement as well, but I can't remember. But they make very, very strong use of the rep bots and have a good Logi pilot. What NC decided to do is just bomb off the rep bots, and they decided to do that, and they executed. And from there, it was a lot easier to pick off that Oni with... I believe they had a flagship bow. I believe DHB was in one. And then they also had that backed up by the Navy Battlecruiser Corps, so they could start to tag it at range and bring it down as they were coming in.
Yeah, Skill Yourself was running the 5 Battlecruiser Corps with 2 Vigilants, 2 Purifiers, and an Oneros as the Logi. And Northern Coalition was running the Flag Balgorn, Guardian, 2 Fleet Hurricanes, a Navy Harbinger, a Vigilant, a Vexer, and 3 Bombers, 2 Purifiers, and 1 Hound. So yeah, that bomb run off of NC right at the beginning, that was pretty critical. I mean, it took all of the Skill Yourself battlecruisers and cruisers down to at least early armor.
Give that man an extra skin.
I think it was maybe 2 bombs, honestly.
Let's see.
But yeah, like I said, I think the Balgorn picked up the momentum as this match continued on, and NC started to use their control to eventually control Skill Yourself and bring them into the DPS.
It can be hard to land in a situation where your opponent has a flagship, but you don't. Just because of especially with the strength of the Balgorn flagships, with most comps, you can't focus on that Balgorn and bring it down before you bring the Logi down. Then once the Logi's down, you need to make a decision: am I clearing DPS or am I clearing their control? And depending on what you bring, that could be a good or a bad call either way. And it's always a difficult call to make, especially when you see something like the full Newt Bal. I can't remember if DHB had a full Newt flag Bal here, but it would definitely cause a lot of issues for a Skill Yourself battlecruiser heavy team, especially one that involved the Harbingers. And you kind of see the Brutix Navy ban from the northern side kind of pushing and corralling Skill Yourself into bringing Navy Harbs instead of using the Navy Brutixes if they would have thought about doing that, and potentially bringing the Harbingers as well. And if that's a full Newt Bal, those Navy Harbs, and Harbs are just going to hate their lives because they won't be able to cycle guns or anything for more than one cycle after they use their cap booster.
Those ships are very cap heavy. Even without nuke pressure, you constantly eating cap boosters if you're trying to maintain any kind of range in this particular ship.
Same thing with the Vigilant, another ship that is cap thirsty.
Not as much as the Harbs, though.
Not as much as the Harb, but if it gets under pressure of just like
in practice
one cycle.
with the meta Harb, if you're finding yourself chasing like a rapid light comp or some kind of comp around the field a lot, like say a drone comp to get into good ranges, by the end of 8 to 9 minutes, if you're using your cap boosters correctly and you're cycling that MWD around all the time, you're going to be really low on cap boosters by the end of the match. You might even run out.
Correct, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And it's just cap thirsty ships don't do well when there's any kind of energy nukes on the field, even if they're coming out of even if they're coming out of like cruisers like Vexors. We ran in practice. It was pretty easy to just get a small ship on top of a Harb and put it out of commission in the first couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Well, eventually Skill Yourself ran out of ships and was eventually eliminated by Northern Coalition.
Good run for a first-year team. They got a lot of guys out that come from the old Camel team on the Skill Yourself team, and quality shit posters from that group. They did very well this season. Nothing to be ashamed of to get that far into the top.
There's not a team in this top bracket here, these final weekends, that you could look at and be like, oh, you're embarrassed to lose to these guys. Like they're all very good teams, very practiced and solid.
I don't think there's a single low tier team in either of the final weekend. It was rare for low tier teams to even come into this AT with the feeder brackets, unless they bought themselves in, right?
Or got a buy.
Or got really lucky, like FCon. Can I say that?
Yeah, you can say them. You absolutely can say them. I think who was the it was someone else who bought in that was they were odd in practice. They didn't make it past the first weekend either.
Is there
I don't
clips
recall at all.
today, or is everybody just throwing shade today?
I don't mean to throw shade. It's just like statement of fact.
It's all good.
We can break down that first FCon feeder round if you want, but that's going a little far back.
No, let's move on to the next match here. We had Hydra Reloaded, which we just covered, beat the Tuskers. Now is up against Pen is Out. And Hydra banned the Blackbird, the Armageddon, the Curse, and Pen is Out banned the Gila, the Sleipnir, and the Neros. Hydra brought their Octodad setup, the 8 battlecruiser setup. Pen is Out brought a slightly different comp. This is a Tinker comp, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 2 Navy Scorpions, a Basilisk, a Myrmidon, a Ferox, a Jackdaw, a Harpy, 2 Manticores, and a Nemesis.
Pen is Out is actually... Go ahead, Voodoo.
So Pen is Out was one of our practice partners and one of my favorite teams in the AT. That was the first time I seen them actually lose in this particular comp. And it's just because Hydra brought the just all out damage and was just had enough to crack that Bassie. They did very well at dragging teams out through the mud and getting them to shoot that Bassie, and just dragging a match out while they're picking apart, your side. One of my favorite teams. They ran up against a sledgehammer here.
Yeah. We stole Pen's comp and ran it a few times in practice, and I don't remember if it was up against Rote. I do not remember who it was up against, but there is a threshold you hit, and when you hit the field and you see it, and you calculate the DPS in your head, you go, well, I can't rep it, and that means you got about 30 seconds before your Basilisk is gone. Like it was
against us, and I believe that we tried one of our comps against it, and it didn't really work out that well. But as soon as we swapped to like a battlecruiser comp, it went down. I'm really interested in what the thought process and the Pen is Out team captain's head was, because knowing what they're looking to bring right now, and if I have just looked at Hydra bring the Octodad comp in another situation, I would not want to see this hit the field. Instead of banning like the Oneros and Sleipnir and stuff, I would be a lot more likely to try and toss in Harb Navy band with like a couple of those, because that would just be a terrifying thing to see hit the field, and I'm sure it was for that Logi pilot, because that thing, even with the cap trans and all the reps that Bazzi pilot and his skill is going to get off, it's still going to just melt. And it held it for a small while, but then you did see the Harbs and Harb Navies pull into closer range, and you did see it start to melt once they switched to those high damage ammos.
Once those high damage ammos come out, you're done. There's no saving it. And I agree with the bans, but you got to remember that they've run variations of this on multiple matches and were basically undefeated when it wasn't banned out with the Rattlesnake or the Navy Scorp. So they're probably coming in sitting pretty thinking, we could probably tank that, eliminate. All we got to do is eliminate one of these Navy Harbs in the first 30 seconds, and we're going to be just fine.
Yeah. So, Bassi was first to die, and then they traded for one Navy Harbinger. Then the Bomber Wing obviously melts under any concentrated fire from these battlecruisers. And then Hydra went down a little bit as they tried to take down those Navy Scorpions. And then shoutouts to Blue Melon, who tanked a really long time as he traded at about the same speed as a second Navy Scorpion. And then that sealed it up for Hydra, and they eliminated Pen is out, 100-59.
I think that Pen is out had the best ad that didn't make the AT broadcast for being a little too edgy. I just gotta throw that in there. It's a pretty good ad.
Yeah, there's something about being campy that CCP loves in the AT ads, but being too edgy, you just won't make it.
It's too edgy with their name.
All right. So, in clarification for Tech for Earth, who is following along in live stream here, this is when we move into the best of threes. The finals are best of 5, but these close to eliminations here are best of threes as we move towards the end of this round. So this first best of 3 match was Vidra versus Laserhawks. Now this is essentially the finals of the winners bracket, right? These are the last 2 teams who are in the winners bracket. So obviously these are strong teams, and they brought their best here for these finals of the winners bracket without risking their flagships. So on Vidra's side, we have bans for the Guardian, the Oneros, and the Raibisu. Get fucked Logi. And Laserhawks bans the Harbinger Navy issue, the Atana, and the Brutix Navy issue. Because, let's just eliminate all the other Logi options. And some of the Navy battlecruisers, not enough to slow these teams down. Laserhawks bringing 2 Fleet Hurricanes, 2 Harbingers, 2 Brutixes, 2 Navy Augurs, which I think this is the first appearance of the Navy Augur in the whole AT at this point.
Oh, no, it wasn't.
Oh, no? Not used often.
No, we used it, but, we one of those off-meta teams, but that's the second time it came out.
Not often. 2 Pontifexes as their support links there. Vidra brought 2 Fleet Hurricanes, 2 Harbingers, 2 Brutix, 2 Ferox, and 2 Vexers. They've obviously read the Hydra playbook and understand that Octodad is cool. Who wants to talk about how this match went?
I think that in this particular matchup, the Laserhawks believed that Vidra would be bringing the Octodad comp, and they tried to make it weaker and push Vidra somewhat away from it by doing the Harb Navy and Brutix Navy ban to kind of neuter its effectiveness, right? And hopefully if they can push Vidra away from it, they can bring their own little bastardized version of the Octodad comp and win. But in a match like this, for a team that, no offense to the Laserhawks, they did very well this year, but for a team that is known to be less skilled than another team, the less skilled team never wants to see a mirror matchup, and this is kind of what they saw, and they got outfit and outplayed.
The announcers made a big deal out of them bringing Pontifexes at the 6 point price point, where you could have brought 2 more battle cruisers and brought 2 Vexes. You got a whole line of ships that can throw links in the Laserhawk setup. I'm not really sure if they had a lack of pilots that can actually put out the links. That might have been a problem on why they chose to bring the Pontifexes. But they showed many graphics about how the Vexor, you know, did way more damage than the Pontifexes on specific kill males.
Yeah, this was a very quick tempoed match, right? Neither of these teams have Logi, so it was just straight DPS. Just choose your primary and just vaporize it. The difference was that Laserhawks had brought mostly ECM drones, apparent to the Vomitators, and Vidra had all DPS drones. So just take your max DPS comp and just throw more drones out and just burn away your problems, right?
That's actually not like a horrible idea in my opinion with a comp like this. However, against Vidra, it's going to be less effective because on their battle cruisers, from what I've seen from their Z-kill losses, they tend to fit like a sensor booster. So those EC bots aren't going to have nearly as much effect on like the Harbs and the on the Harbs and stuff. But yeah, if you look at the attack bars in this match before it starts, you just see that the Hydra attack bar is completely full with gray. So they're nearly off the chart with that, and then Laserhawks is a little bit lower, probably due to bringing those augers instead of, as Voodoo said, more battle cruisers.
And the drones make a difference in there as well. That gives them a little bit more to control bay having once they drop those EC bots. But here's something else. Vidra is a team that's very hard to bring ships against. They shown the Chameleon double rook setup. They also showed the Widow Atana combo, and then they also showed the Octodad the battle cruiser. So they showed the ability to, no matter what you ban versus them, they had something to bring that was going to be devastating to what you brought throughout the entirety of the tournament.
So yeah, it felt like that slight DPS advantage gave Laserhawks the tempo, or gave Vidra the tempo over Laserhawks, and began to clean them up. This match was done in about 90 seconds. I mean, it wasn't all the ships weren't dead after 90 seconds, but it was pretty much done after 90 seconds.
Yeah, with a mirror match like this, I mean, it's a mathematical equation, really. I mean, there's going to be relatively equal EHP, and yeah, Cyclo, it's real body for me. Relatively equal EHP, but when you got more damage, it's, like I said, just a math equation on the end. ECM bots give you some manner of control, quote unquote, on paper, but in reality, I mean, you're going to play the dice roll game. So if the GMs hit, land, spread, sure, but if they don't, like, you're straight up gambling at that point.
So Vidra was victorious. Laserhawks taking their first loss of this Alliance tournament. Pretty awesome for a fresh team to the AT. All right, we took a long break here in the middle of the day, and then we moved into the second half of commentation. There was a large delay during the Pen is Out Hydro Reloaded game because one of the Pen is Out pilots DC'd or couldn't reconnect. So the CCP, good guy CCP, let them reshuffle out that pilot for a new pilot, same comp, and let them run the match, which is awesome. Took a while. It's nice of them to do that. So
You don't want to see a team lose on a technicality of that nature once you get to the stakes being that high on the final weekend.
yeah, for sure. So, best of 3 on the other side, on the loser side. Definitely losers here, right? NC Dot versus Hydra. And NC Dot in their first match of this best of 3 banned the Blackbird, the Kitsune, and the Rook. Fuck jams. And Hydra Reloaded banned the Raibisu, the Atana, and Brutix Navy issue because AT Logi, best Logi. NC Dot with the Oneros, the Fleet Hurricane, 2 Navy Harbingers, Curse, double Brutix, double Vexor, and a Punisher. Hydra Reloaded bringing the Octodad setup. Did we mention that everyone just starts to bring the Octodad setup?
Yeah, it was the meta in the last weekend.
I mean, you continue to see this through here. Well, just remember, Octodad, 8 battlecruisers, very slightly, but this one is the pure one with the Vexers and just 8 battlecruisers. So, yeah, the Curse was a pretty good counter for this heavy battlecruiser setup, and they laid down the target disruptors pretty quick, but that was the primary for Hydra. And then Hydra moved on to lose a Navy Harbinger in that trade, but then moved on to the Oneros to weaken out their Logi, trading for another Navy Harbinger. But you know what's the best thing about an Octodad setup? Is you could lose a couple battlecruisers and you're still in it, right?
Yeah, like
Right.
that's essentially just what happened here. They took out the softer, smaller stuff, and then again, it's just numbers, and you know they may have lost a few, but they can take those punches and keep going. So it just rolls in their favor as you remove the control and remove the easily killable DPS on the enemy side.
And the target calling from, I believe it was Hydra, was very good here. If you're bringing this Octodad setup, one of the big risks to it that you're seeing on this NC side is going to be that Curse, which can nude out those Harbs over time and tracking disrupt any of the battle cruisers and limit their application as well. And that's just something you don't want to see. You're relying on all that DPS and application, and you need the DPS and you need it to apply, right?
Going into this final weekend, you started to see the points change from 15 points for Tech 2 Logistics to 17, and the upscaling of the battleship points start to take effect, and the meta start to be defined a little bit. That Oneros became less valuable, that Tech 2 Logi became less valuable to these teams as the weekend progressed, as all of the weekends progress, because you can just bring another damage ship and just eliminate the Logi at the beginning, and now they're down 17 points with no Logi, with less DPS than what you have, and you're not in a position at that point to really trade. A lot of times, once we lost the logistics in our matches, the match was done, unless it was a straight Logi trade. If one Logi was up on one side, one on the other. But once you started to see the meta fully flesh out these higher tier teams, that Tech 2 Logi became less and less important.
So a lot of teams build their comps around the logistics, and unless you're doing some kind of crazy like ruse with some kind of structure and Tech 1 Logi frigates, but a lot of teams build their comps around it. Even if it's the T2 Logi frigates, your comps built around making sure that they're protected, they're up at least long enough to trade a sufficient amount of DPS that you can guarantee a win in the DPS foot race, or long enough that you can trade logistics and you've got the bigger gun still. And when that doesn't happen, or you look at it and you go 17 points, I can trade a Vexer and hopefully eliminate a battlecruiser, and then I'm winning the DPS foot race right there.
Yeah, the meta was getting definitely clear as Hydra Reloaded took this match over Northern Coalition 100 to 48, taking the first match of that best of 3. I had to note that Jintan and Rain were on the in-booth commentary for this match. Alright, so we'll move into round 2. Vidra versus Laserhawks. Vidra Reloaded banned the Guardian, the Oneros, and the Raibusu. Almost the same bans as last match. Fuck Logi. And Laserhawks banning the Harbinger Navy issue, the Brutix, and the Brutix Navy issue. Trying to squash some of the Octodad setup, but obviously the Octodad setup is almost unbannable because there are like 8 choices. 8 ships, 8 choices, and we're seeing more of them here with Vidra bringing 2 Fleet Hurricanes, 2 Harbingers, 2 Feroxes, and 2 Vexers. Versus Laserhawks, which brought 2 Vindicators, 2 Rooks, Execure, 2 Pontifex, Enyo, and 2 Vengeance. Now this is a very jam-heavy setup. This was popular earlier in the weekends, correct?
Yeah, and this was an interesting match to watch. I would have thought that the Laserhawks would bring this one home absolutely. If you're looking at armor rooks, then you're looking at I think like 5 or 6 very strong, decently long-range jams, depending on the fit of your rook, and that's per rook. And they could just blanket those across the opposing team pretty decently, mitigate the DPS really effectively. And I don't know if that just failed to happen or if there was like a lack of screening going on, but they were able to just haze that Executor, or if they like forgot rep bots even, but they were able to haze that Executor decently fast, enough to start trading really, really well.
He stayed up for a while. When I watched this match, the Executor stayed up a while. Vajra did a really good job of shooting rep bots in this match in between the GM cycles that were coming. And then finally the Executor dropped, then a Rook dropped, and the Vindicators of screen. They lost all of the control, and they was able to put down the Vindicators at that point. Once again, they brought double Pontifex in the setup instead of the Vexa at 4 points or some other ship at that 4 point price point. They brought an Inyo instead of a Vexa here, and they made the commentators made a big deal out of the fact that all of the other ships that they brought outside of the Vexa in these matches, and you get to the final weekend where you gotta come up with these comps with 3 bands each. This is when you start to see the real tournament teams, the real top tier teams exert their will upon teams that maybe weren't expecting to be this far. Nothing to take away from Laserhawks, but Vidra's been pretty much close to this situation many times. Once you get to the point of getting into this final weekend, you got like 45 minutes, and you got to make a decision on what you're gonna fly and then bring it out. All your training, all your practices, can go by the wayside with those 6 bands.
Yeah, and when you build around RNG and you want RNG to hit, it seems like the RNG goddess just gives you a big middle finger too, like right at the worst possible time.
Yeah, but like, I don't want to put, thoughts, or not thoughts, but like, I don't want to pontificate about maybe what was going through their heads. But you get to that point, like you're talking Voodoo, you get to that point, and maybe they weren't expecting to be this far, but Vidra has this, game plan. They've shown strong comps, and they stuck with what's been working, and they have this overall kind of strategy, I guess you would say, of what they want to show between matches, what they know and think will work, and they're looking not at this match, but at the next match. I feel like maybe out of your depths, you're not looking at the current match. You're not looking at this future match. You're looking at the current match, and that sort of planning, that sort of scale, doesn't really come about unless you have deeper experience in the AT. Laserhawks being a new and good team, they've gotten this far off of what they've been doing now, but maybe they were, like you said, not prepared, and so they're going with something that they think will work, but they don't really have the how am I trying to put this? They don't really have the depth with it, the practices with it.
So what were the bands again on this setup?
Harbinger Navy issue, Brutix Navy, Brutix, Gordian, Oneros, and Robisu.
Yeah, so anytime you see like a straight set band like that, you're really who banned all the armor logi?
That was
Vidra.
Okay, so anytime you're looking at that, you've looked at the tapes, or your person you're practicing, and you say, hey, they really can only fly, or they fly this really well. We're going to force them into a weaker position of it, and that'll give us the edge. Because we had similar thought process. Not to take any detract from our guys, but shields we performed poorly in. Armor we performed fairly well in. And so the thought process was, oh shit, what if they ban all the armor? We're going to be in like already one step back, and people are going to be out of their comfort zone.
But then you look at it in the flip side, Laserhawks did the same thing. They went hard Navy, Brutix Navy ban, trying to push Vidra out of that Octodad comp. And sure enough, they just stuck with it. Like we said earlier, there's 8 choices. They went Fleet Cane, Kane, Harbinger, Ferox, and just did the same thing, different boats, and made up for it with skill and practice.
Yeah,
I think that they still actually expected to see the Octodad comp, just a weaker version of it, because one of the things that a lot of people who are flying these battlecruiser comps are often afraid of is like Vindicators, Rooks, and Vindicators and Rooks. Those are pretty terrifying, and Vengeances if they can properly screen and stay within Logi range, but that's a little bit more of a skill thing. But those Vindicators can just apply so much DPS to those battlecruiser hulls, and those battlecruisers don't tend to fit plates or anything like that. I think they actually do in the Octodad comp and stuff, but they can apply really well to the hulls, and the Rooks can get those jams off. I think they were actually preparing for the Octodad. They were just trying to lessen the blow when it hit the field.
No, I mean, let's flip this around. Sorry, not flip it around, but you look at the Rook fits, they had 3 yellow jams each, 2 blue jams, and 1 red jam. So I don't think they were prepared for the Octodad at all. I think they were looking for something else, like jamming out a Power Guard. Because they banned Harb Navy and they banned Brutixes, so obviously they're not expecting to utilize green jams, but it sounds like they're looking for something hard or heavier on the MR side, and they only had 2 Harbingers to throw that on.
And you never would have thought of Ferox is coming. You're like, what the fuck is this?
I would.
I mean,
Feroxes can be really strong.
2 blues and 1 red when all the armor lodges banned out. Again, confusing.
Well, something else that was mentioned this weekend was that unless both teams are complicit at both saying like fuck, battle cruisers, you can't ban it out. Like one team cannot ban out the battle cruiser setups. So you can do your best to take the strongest ones, which is the Harb Navy and the Brutix Navy out of the equation. Maybe the Brutix Harbinger would probably be the that 1B category after those. But unless both teams are dead set on not facing battle cruisers, there's always an option, especially when you go on Logi lists and just putting the most EHP you can and the most damage on a ship and going out there and just throwing it into the wind.
Can someone pull up one of those fleet canes real quick and tell me if they were artillery?
One second.
I would strongly assume they were.
I would as well. I would assume as well. And that's something that I would hate to have seen, and my Rooks would have been like ready for that, because like you don't want to see Alpha when you're in a jam boat coupled with some sustained DPS in the back. I mean, you're just looking at the sustained DPS mitigating the Logi reps and the fleet canes just powering through with chunks until those either the Logi's dead or the control's dead. It's just that's just a rough thing to bring.
They're already.
That's just rough all the way around. That became a comp that could just reach out and touch a bitch from anywhere with those Feroxes and fleet canes.
I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but the Vexor screening here in this match was really important. The Vexors just hung out at 0 on these Vindicators and just scram and webbed them and held them down.
I remember that. I seem to remember that took a little bit too long to clear those Vexors. It would really allow the battlecruisers to maneuver around the Vindicators depending on the warpins, to get a better angle and move into good DPS ranges on things like the Logi or the Rooks, which probably aren't warping at 0 right with the Vindicator.
No, definitely not. And then on the other side of that is like if all your battlecruisers are spread out, they don't need to be near each other to directly support one another. So now you got projection from your battlecruisers, no projection from your Vindies, which are all your control. And guess who's boating around to catch people? The Vindies, who are being shot the whole goddamn time. So in the end, it plays out a little bit better for the battlecruisers because, like we talked about, they can ablate, they can spread out. They're kind of all by themselves, but also as a team. So you lose one, the team doesn't crumple. There's no interconnecting pieces there, really.
In any kind of Logi, excuse me. Any kind of frigates you bring in support, bombers, griffins, anything you bring in to support, tackle frigates, daredevils, versus tracking battle cruisers are just dead. There's no catching them if they focus properly.
Then you also have the issue with the Vindicators here. Even, I consider that they're tackled, whatever, but they can't actually apply out to the Navy battlecruisers, tackled or not, as well as the battlecruisers are piloting properly. They just don't, if they're fit well, they don't have rails, and blasters with null are going to go out to 30, somewhere around there, for the large blasters, and you're just not going to see a good projection at those battlecruisers. I think, I don't really like this comp, but I don't really know what they're trying to bring it against at the same time. I'm sure they've practiced it before.
You normally see something with the Vindicators having some kind of a ship with web projection that can reach out and pass it off to stop the help your Vindicators out. Don't make them chase 80 kilometers across the grid to catch a Ferox, and catching those HFIs is going to be damn near impossible.
I guess the Vengeances would have had Scram Web, right?
Yeah, but once the Logi goes down, and even before that, if the Vengeances move out too far away from the Logi, it's just going to get deleted really fast, even with a really good Amar Assault Frigate tank. And I'm sure those are 1 or 2 plated, probably 1 400 plate, but you can get them up to like 12 to 14 K buffer. Then, like, even with that, they're still going to be deleted. And once those Vengeances, that Enyo, and depending on maybe the Pontifexes, depending on the exact fit and what they put in their utility mids, go down, those battle cruisers can effectively sit on an MJD beacon, and those Vindicators are not going to have scrams. They're probably going to be dual web. So even if a Vindicator manages to get on top of a battle cruiser, if it's on an MJD beacon, it can just hit that panic button and get out.
Well, this was the end of Laserhawks being undefeated in the AT as they fall to Vidra Reloaded 45 to 100, putting them down into the losers bracket. Not out, but down, definitely down. All right, and then we move into the second round match of NC Dot versus Hydra Reloaded. NC Dot banning the Brutix Navy issue, the Harbinger Navy issue, and the Ferox. They obviously know how to fit an Octodad setup. And Hydra Reloaded banning the Vigilant, the Curse, and the Atana. But Hydra Reloaded, not to be corrected in thinking they are a one-trick pony, brings something completely different in this match. Somebody want to run through these ships?
I loved this match. For those who don't remember, last week Northern Coalition brought a drone kind of thing where they had a jamless, very highly tanked Chameleon, and it's like the worst thing I've ever seen. But in this match, Hydra brings the Chameleon dual Rook armor setup with so many jams, and they just absolutely schooled Northern Coalition on how to use ECM. I believe that was actually an NC flagship Balgorn as well, which is a difficult thing to see when you have so much of this like armor ECM, because cap can become an issue, right? If you cap out the jams, then there's an issue with that. You also see the sacrileges, which are an interesting choice, and it's fun to see those actually used very well. In this AT. Last AT, you saw teams use them, but they tended to fall on their face pretty quickly when faced with good opponents. But generally, like for this match, if I remember correctly, Hydra just kept NC jammed out for a good portion of it until they got really good jams off and started to kill through some stuff.
No, this is the match I was most interested in talking about. We in our testing, we went in and we tested the Chameleon quite extensively, just kind of expecting to be in that third weekend. And the Chameleon itself, that Rook level jams and the good DPS, it's very strong. But looking at the weekend before, this particular comp was used to great effect. And in this particular arrangement here, this particular composition, it's undefeated. You go through all of the matches. That Chameleon double Rook comp with the Prophecy and double Sacrilege, was fielded very, very times, very many times throughout the whole tournament, and it was undefeated throughout the whole tournament. Everybody, kind of on about a particular battle cruiser used in the final match, but this for me was the all star. It was just, I'm gonna take one of the best teams in this AT, and I'm not gonna let them do anything. Entire match, you're not killing anything. You might kill some drones, but that's it. And just shut them down for an entire 10 minutes, and the score will only be like 36 to 12. Like a ridiculous number, like ridiculously low. Like they playing baseball. They're not playing, you know, they're not playing an AT match.
So let's clarify for the listeners at home: the NC Dot team brought the Flag Balgorn, the Raibisu, 2 Fleet Hurricanes, 2 Brutixes, a Vexer, a Purifier, Hound, and a Punisher. And Hydra, as stated, brought a Guardian, a Chameleon, 2 Rooks, a Prophecy, 2 Sacrileges, Pontifex, and 2 Vexers. So obviously the Bombers just died almost instantly because there was enough damage on the Hydra team. But then this whole match kind of shut down with the jams, right?
But I mean,
It didn't shut down so much as Hydra controlled Northern Coalition for a very long time.
the Northern Coalition brought a gun. I believe it was a gun bow here. I don't believe it died in this match, but it was a gun bow. And actually, if they had brought a full NOS setup here, you know, that's the worst enemy at ECM. Like, you can't jam shit if you nude it completely dry. And, you know, being they only brought 2, energy warfare mods in the high slides, excuse me. You know, they weren't able to shut down effectively more than one jam bolt at a time, and then you catch another jam in the Balgorn, and another 20 seconds goes by where he can't do anything. You know, you're in a 58 billion-ish ship that can't do shit for the entire match.
That's last time the last podcast we talked about newt bows versus gun bows and having two newts and one NOS, or one newt and one NOS. And if I offended somebody by calling it idiocy, I apologize. And I understand wanting to have the DPS out of your Balgorn, but as a logistic pilot, if you're good at running the logistics, you can time up your cap boosters and get in sync where you can get 1 or 2, like a full rack of reps off, sometimes even 2, in between 2 heavy newts and even 1 NOS. So it's hard to cap out anything with, you know, more than 1 ship, even if it's ECM. Now, Blackbird you can get. You run all 3 into it, leave the NOS, move on to the next, maybe leave a newt. But you're talking about 3 things that are here, and you're going to catch intermittent jams and allow them to get their cap back up. If you're basing your comp on being able to control, like, fucking bring some control. The difference here was that they brought control. They brought how many jams out of the dual Rooks and a Chameleon versus barely, you know, some webs and a little bit of newt pressure, and just
at least control. 15.
Yeah, not 1 jam for everybody and 3 for the Logi.
One of the things that we liked about the Rook, and we started to actually use it a lot, is you bring 1 less jam than 2 Blackbirds for the same point cost. And what winds up happening is the jams are much stronger and they hit versus these teams that are set up versus ECM. And, you know, once you start landing Rook jams, they don't stop. They just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming, because you're talking on you got double the jam strength than a Blackbird here out of a Rook frame.
It snowballs itself into a victory through control.
And this snowball took a while to form compared to some of these Octodad setups, which were rolling through matches in like 2 minutes. This match went the full time, and not half of the NC Dot's points were killed, right?
Yeah. Well, put a smile on my face. It was I think it's the second weekend. I think the commentators are on our team speak. I don't remember. Somebody talking about, like, what's a Chameleon? And I remember looking it up and being like, oh yeah, it does have bonuses to ECM and drones. Huh, that's weird. And then sure enough, third weekend, fucking the Rook Chameleon comes out and just wins. And you look at it and you go, okay, I understand that. But then it's like Prophecy, Sack, Vexer. Like, I guess that's damage, ? But it works because you just shut them down and you just slowly but surely whittle them away.
And those sacrileges are a really great screen as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you cannot kill those. Those are really hard to kill. Plus, I think they have like 4 mid slots. So you have like a micro scram web, and that Balgorn's not going anywhere. You could pick one of anything else and decide that's not going anywhere, right?
I mean, they got 100. Good.
They got 100 meter. They got 100 meter drone base, so you could bring rep bots and you could bring damage bots out of it as well.
Yeah. So I mean, they're thick. So you could spend a quarter of the match shooting 1 sacrilege as your team dies, or you can try to go for the tactical like stuff on the jams if you're unjammed. It's just built to survive. It says, yeah, you know, if you don't kill our bombers, like, while we get control, that sucks. But if you don't kill them, that's better for us. And then like, you know, try to kill something. All those ships are fat. They are just really fat.
Speaking of somebody who's been in an AT match last year where we lost because we got controlled to death and picked apart. My favorite part of this was the trash talk that DHB Wildcat was tossing out in local because they got controlled for a full 10 minutes with 2 rooks and a chameleon armor fit worth of jams. That must have been absolute pain. And he was like throwing out collusion accusations and stuff towards Hydra because Vidra Reloaded had brought this comp, I think, in a previous match, which like, they're obviously practice partners, right?
Oh.
Of course, they're gonna steal each other's effective comps. That just kind of happened.
We weren't even practicing with these guys, and we wanted to stop this comp. When we fought PL, we were like, "What's the one thing we don't want to face? Rook, chameleon, ban the fucking chameleon." And we got criticized by the commentators. That why would you ban the chameleon? He was like, "We don't want to be controlled for 10 minutes."
Was that weekend 2? Was that the reference I was talking about?
That was weekend 3. Our match versus PL on weekend 3. We came out and banned the chameleon, our first ban, and the commentators were like, "Well, that's not a ship you very hear about very much." And then, sure enough, later that day, here comes out the chameleon, just like slow motion, forcible lovemaking, for lack of a better term.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, I thought that was awesome.
Well, the Raibisu of NC didn't make it out of that match, so an amusing loss. NC Dot falls to Hydra Reloaded, and they secure 4th place in the Alliance tournament. And that was the end of day 7.
Second year in a row for NC Dot, 4th place. Consistency. They didn't in that top 4. That's the upper echelon. Sorry to cut you off, Bubba.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, not many Red Beasties making it out of this fucking Thunderdome alive this year.
Nah. All right. Well, the beginning of day 8, they reminded us what all these teams are playing for, and that is the Victor, which is the Cruiser award for Alliance Tournament 15, and that's pretty much a mix of the.
It's a rapier with vigilant webs. So not only can I web you at 45 plus kilometers, but it's 90%. So you go nowhere if I touch you with this thing.
I think that's going to be really strong in next year's AT for something. You can do like the Balgorn strong arm kind of thing with, I think, slightly less ranged webs, but with 90% webs at high range. So I think next year you'll probably see these mixed in with battlecruiser application comp, just to, at the very beginning of a match, decide you don't have frigates, you don't have Logi. Is there anything else that I don't want to see from you? Because that's probably going to die too very quickly.
Yeah, I got fooled by the Celestis hull, but yeah, you guys are right. Super web bonused, super hybrid turret damaged bonused, and a drug bay just so you can store all your drugs on Tranquility.
So you want a Serpentis roleplay, baby. Make them drugs.
Get those drugs. And more interesting ship to me is the frigate for this year, which is a mix of a bomber and what is this, a daredevil?
Oh, it is, and it is awesome. As far as they're going to die in a fire, and they're going to be an expensive kill mail, and I don't really see a practical use for them in the AT. But oh my god, I just want to own one just to go through a fucking Black Ops jump and murder something.
So not to read through all the freaking abilities on the ship, because I swear it's gonna like stretch the show info window to a new level here. But like, it has bonuses to torpedoes, bonuses to small hybrids, and then all the kind of bomb bonuses to stasis web of fire effectiveness and stasis web of fire bombs, and then like an armor repair bonus and more damage bonuses, so you can have a full flight of torpedoes and a full rack effectively of small fucking. Oh man, like
I think a stasis web of fire bomb will be really interesting. I think you will see somebody field this in the AT, probably in the finals or something, depending on its tank stats, because bombers aren't very tanky, and with the battlecruiser meta, like, they get deleted. But depending on the strength of that bomb, you could just launch that and decide that the enemy team's not moving very fast for a little while. You can easily maneuver around them and tag that Logi real quick, or do whatever you want.
Let's just talk stasis web of fire bombs in general. Like, I think it was a previous podcast that when these first came out, they talked about them. That was a big thing that like piqued my interest. Like, are they going to do more? Are they going to do other types of bombs like target painting, et cetera, et cetera? Because that's interesting. There are applications there.
That was something that they talked about with the new buff system. When the new command links and all came out, was the ability to provide area of effect weapons of different natures, like stasis webifiers, target painters. You already started to see them iterate that on the super capitals a little bit, but now they're going to start to bring it down to the stealth bomber level.
But you probably want to do scrams. Obviously, we have things called bubbles, but webs.
Well,
and TPs.
That's not necessarily true, because I think it'd be awesome to have a bomb that I wish it had a bigger range. If it's the same range as the normal bombs, like the web bombs would be awesome, but you're picking like I'm gonna web down these battleships, like so I can get some tackle on them, even though my tackle probably can get it in the first 10 seconds anyways. Maybe you can get the Logi with it, but that seems risky for a ship that's going to be that expensive. Throw it away to get the web on the Logi. But on TQ, if there were scrambler bombs that say had a 40-kilometer range, and you could actually not disrupt but scram an entire fleet with one of these bombs, or web a huge area, like it would be great to take a kiting ship, get in front, drop a bomb, warp off, have it web a whole bunch of Serbs or whatever it was that's out there, and they're all dead in the water. Think of it with scrams too, because this gets the web bonus. But think of it with scrams and it shuts off all their props. Now you're rolling right up on them.
Yeah.
Well, you could see this come into play when you got a situation where you anchoring up on your FC. You get a bomber wing out in front, you throw a few webs out, and everybody's now going like 2 meters a second, and then now you can get tackle on an enemy group, or apply another bomb wave, or just keep ships from getting outside of bubbles. You can just have a stealth bomber uncloaking and dropping these stasis webifier bombs along with the rest of the stuff that's happening to them.
Yeah. So I do hope they do bring more than just stasis webifier bombs. More tools for the sandbox is always
all of them. Scrams, paints, tracking disruptors. Bring it all. Like, bring it all.
Gentlemen, we have no time to care about tranquility. We still have matches on freaking the AT to cover here.
It's on TQ.
Shh. Don't logic me. There's no logic here.
Well, speaking of prizes, though, I really am hoping that the skin that you're seeing on these two prize ships is the skin that they're going to hand out to the teams, because that thing looks really, really nice.
Yeah, it's nice. Way better than last year's. Listen up, CCP.
Hey, last year's was awesome.
Nah,
the ships
these
are just
awesome.
Underused. That's why you don't like them.
These are awesome skins, and I hope because they look kind of like the police skins, and the police skin's the best skin.
Yeah, it's like a gold, white, and gray kind of, and the Virtuoso, which is the bomber there, is on the Nemesis hull.
Yeah, I do like it. I do like that skin.
All right, so all these teams in the last day, the final day of AT15, is the top three. We have Hydra and Laserhawks up first, duking it out in the winner of the losers bracket. This is a 3-round match to see who goes to the finals of the finals. So Hydra versus Laserhawks, round 1. We have ship bans from Hydra: Blackbird, Curse, and Natana, and Laserhawks banning the Harbinger Navy issue, the Brutix, and the Brutix Navy issue. Similar bans to their last match. So Laserhawks brings the Basilisk, 2 Rooks, 2 Gilas, 2 Cerberuses, 2 Storks, and a Raptor, versus Hydra bringing a Guardian, a Chameleon, double Rook, Prophecy, double Sacrilege, Pontifex, and double Vexer. The same setup we just discussed at length. So this is a jam off. Get your jams here. Jams for everyone.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a jam war, and something that you can see a lot here is if the Rooks have a sensor booster fit, or if these command decies fit remote sensor boosters in their utility, which I would expect the Pontifex and the Vexers on the Hydra team to have Recebos, but just because of the amount of utility slots that they do have, then it either team that didn't bring those would lose the jam war, right? But this, if I remember correctly, this went back and forth a little bit, and they did a lot of blanket jams. And Hydra at the very beginning, didn't they focus a lot of their jams into those rooks to try and secure the initial control war?
But this match actually went 10 minutes. You're looking at 33-12 Hydra over Laserhawks. But whenever you come up against ECM based comps, the Arma has the advantage. You have more available mid slots for E-War there, and more is normally better. Once you drop a gem on one of these ships, they can start to apply to multiple ships. Whereas the Rooks and the Laserhawk side have to kind of be focused on, they have to be a little bit more surgical instead of like corporate bombing. From the Hydra side, I can jam your whole setup. Laserhawks had to jam specific pieces of Hydra setup, and the Bassi being you in shields, you really cannot bring a lot of innate. You can't bring a sensor booster locally. So once jams start to land on your remote ECM ships, ECCM ships, the sensor strength drops down on the Bassi. You lose jams, and you've seen him bleed a Cerberus, and then he'll pick back up his lock, and he'll hold up for a little bit, and then you'll see another Cerberus go down, and it was just like a tug of war, just back and forth, and Hydra having the more jams on their side were able to jam out Laserhawks and keep them, basically right at arm's length, and just picked out, a bunch of 11-point ships out of their comp, put them down.
So let's not also forget that the Guardian and the Augur and are both the Amar Logi Tech 2 and Tech 1 are awful unless they're re-Seaboed. Like you got to have a cat booster on there. So absolutely, you've got re-Seabos coming out of something, be it the sacrileges, be it the Pontifexes, be it the Vexers. You got re-Seabos coming out of ships onto the Hydra line. Now, one thing I'll say about armor is armor, when your Logi gets jammed, typically stays up for the jam cycle. You get a second chance. Unless they land a second jam cycle on top of you, you're typically getting a chance to save your armor boats, especially against a DPS line that isn't catastrophically huge like Laserhawks. They don't have a DPS line that's probably going to power through any one of these ships except for the destroyers and below under one cycle of jams. Whereas the Laserhawk side, you get a hold of a Serb, and you can put it down in one jam cycle because it's shields. Once those shields reach critical mass and you get down to like 5-6% remaining, it's really hard to come back and save it from the brink. Like it's tough.
I agree for the most part, but with one slight correction. The Rooks, if you get one jam cycle on like a Guardian or an Nero, if you can get your DPS onto something like that Rook very quickly, then you can actually burst that down. The Rooks do not have an amazing tank. I believe it's like 27k with a reactive. So that can actually be bursted through if you can swap your DPS over there fast enough.
And I agree. I'll agree with that. But I'm looking at like the armor line there. You're not putting any of the Amar ships other than the Pontifex out of commission, or even the Galente ship in one jam cycle. The Rook, yeah, and you're assuming though that none of the DPS on the Laserhawk side is jammed out. That none of those ships are jammed out.
It's interesting to look at the attack bars in this match before like anything starts dying, because they're pretty even, and you would usually expect the shield team to have the more damage because they have the spare mid slots, right? And the Chameleon may play into that a little bit, but it just kind of looks like Laserhawks came in with a lot less damage than they potentially could have.
A lot
has
of
an extra boat for damage.
Also, Laserhawks' damage is tied into rapid light. So if you can't kill it before those rapid light cycle, now you got to wait 35 seconds for those to reload as well. So not only are you dealing with a 20-second jam cycle on one of those DPS boats and then a reload, you have to time up those rapid light cycles to coincide with each other to put down an armor ship.
Yeah, is that too?
So yeah, I mean, There was a good couple moments there where the first Cerberus didn't look like it was going to die. It was super close. I mean, low DPS from Hydra because there was so much control. But it did eventually die, and then that last Cerberus didn't die till 1 second left on the clock. I don't even know if it would have counted, but Hydra had enough points to win this one, and they took the first match of this best of 3. Only 33-12. That was the final score there. And then there are no other matches to watch, so we just swipe right into it. 20 minutes later, just pull out your next comp. I hope you did all your pipe filling in advance because there's no time to fix it up. Moving on, next match, round 2. We had Hydra Reloaded banning the Rook, the Falcon, and the Curse. Because, well, I mean, you got jammed in the last match. Don't want to get jammed again? And Laser bans the Harbinger Navy issue, the Brutix, and the Brutix Navy issue. But, I mean, go back to the well here. Laserhawks copying the Octodad setup with a slight variation, which some people from Tranquility may find amusing. The Fleet Hurricanes, a double of those. Double Drakes. Yes, SC, can I bring my Drake? Harbinger Navy issue in 2 Feroxes, 2 Vexers against Hydra, who brought the Atana, Widow, Tinker Tank. So double Widow, Atana, double Gila, double Stork, double Manticore, and a Nemesis.
So if you go with Laserhawks here, you know, they're not wanting to. They want to bring their own Octodad setup while banning Hydra's strongest one. So they ban themselves out of the best ships to actually bring in the comp. And Hydra just, like you said, digs in the well, pulls out the double Widow Atana Tinker, and just owns the complete, you know, pretty much they know from the bans that, you know, well, we don't really need to bring heavy Amor or heavy Galente. Let's bring, you know, heavy Mimitor, heavy Caldari, and, you know, just take Laserhawk's best shot with just a Tana Tinker, which is kind of similar to the Pinner's Out Tinker, only with the stronger Logi Bolt. Plus jams out of the Widows as well. It's also another undefeated comp during the AT run.
So it's exactly right, and that the Tinker was a very, you know, smart thing to bring in that situation because, like Voodoo said, you banned yourself out of one of the only comps that crushes the Tinker. Like, and I don't see Laserhawks landing with 2 Vindicators and some other high DPS blaster boats or autocannon boats to shut it down. So why not bring the Tinker? You know, the jams aren't coming.
So yeah, Hydra bombed Laserhawks very early and did a lot of good damage. The Atana was never really under heavy threat from the Laserhawks team as the Widow Gems neutered their DPS, just completely took it out of the match. And Hydra Reloaded just walked all over Laserhawks in 5 minutes with a complete sweep, 100-0. I mean, congrats to Laserhawks. Their first time in the Alliance tournament, they take home 3rd and approximately 2 trillion in prize ships.
I don't believe this is their first time in the AT, is it?
I thought they were in the AT before, but I think this may be their first time in the final like matches.
I believe this is their first time in the AT. I may be mistaken on this, but I do know that they participated in the Anga games last year, and did very strong in there. I've seen some videos of those guys when he was first getting started. So this is a tournament team. You know, AT wise, you know, making a deep run into the AT, probably their first, you know, guaranteed their first time doing that. But you know, this is a team that's had some practice, has been scrimmaging very, very good partners, and crushing those partners as well. I remember we sat 3 hours waiting for them to finish scrimmaging Templars one night when we first got started to actually get a match with a decent team, and they just cakewalked on us when we walked in.
So Lasers was a team that, like, coming in, we would openly discuss how everyone's sleeping on Laserhawks because everybody's gonna be favoring the big 4, if you will. You know, PL, NC, Tuskers, like, you know, Hydra, those kinds of people that they're gonna be favoring these individuals over here, and they're gonna sleep on someone like Laserhawks. And then Laserhawks showed that if you're not going to give us the respect and attention that we deserve, then you're just going to get crushed. And they took it all the way to the end and did a damn good job, and they deserve a lot of credit for this run.
Well, do you know what I love about playoff time? The finals.
The finals.
So here we are, the finals. Just 2 teams left. Don't be confused by their names. Vidra Reloaded, joked around as the Otters, versus Hydra Reloaded, the 8-headed monster. 5-headed monster? 8. Oh man, it might.
It just keeps coming when you chop a head off, man.
It might as well be 8 because hashtag Octodad is the theme of this match, as both teams bring the Octodad setup. Hydra going with the Navy Harbingers, Brutixes, Feroxes, Vexers. They banned out the Falcon, the Atana, and the Rook. Don't want the Jams, don't want the Tinker. And Vidra Reloaded banned out the Guardian, the Raibisu, and the Oniros, and brought the Drake meta. Navy Drakes, regular Drakes, Gilas, Feroxes, and Vexers. So a change on the Octodad. Why did they switch to the Drakes?
Like we mentioned earlier, I mean, the Drakes have a massive tank with still relatively high DPS. It's a battle cruiser, you got lots of guns. And it becomes, again, that mathematical equation. They banned out the Armorology, and so they're, I don't know if they were trying to push him into this or push him into something else, but I guess they knew or expected to come up against something that it's going to be a DPS / EHP race.
Well,
And the Navy Drake's going to win that battle 1v1 anytime. So team setup a little bit less perhaps, but they just have a huge amount of EHP compared to other battle cruisers.
And let's be honest too, and I'll make it quick and let you finish up and carry out Voodoo. But like the Drake, who's going to shoot the Drake first? It's a brick. And it doesn't have like substantial DPS. You're looking at ships that have higher DPS on that field and better, maneuverability. So why would you shoot any of the Drakes? It's a ship everybody sleeps on. I don't want to waste all my time killing a ship that doesn't have substantially massive DPS and it's got a giant fucking tank. So it survives to the end, and then it becomes a big problem for the exact reasons you didn't shoot it in the first place.
Well, you look at both of these teams bringing heavy battlecruiser setups. Heavy missiles apply very well to battlecruiser hulls. Without much prodding, all you need is a web, and one paint, and you applying for your full damage, versus logicless comps. And here's the other thing, that both of these teams showed the double widow Atana combo, and both of these teams showed the chameleon rook combo. So something that doesn't really get talked about much is the faction FOF missiles for the Drake, which allows them to actually keep applying damage. All you got to do is get to the target you want to shoot, and sitting on top of ECM boat, you can still apply damage out of those FOF missiles. They're not quite as dumb as people think they are. They work very well. You just have to manage your range with them.
So Hydra primary Dagila, as they did not want to go for those Drakes. In trading, they lost 2 Harbingers. Then the Ferox is traded equally, and then another Gila went down for the Vidra team, and this is only at 8 minutes. I mean, these full-out DPS setups, they go really quick. And there were puns everywhere from moderator on the commentation booth. I mean, he could not throw out the puns fast enough. And then trades for the Navy Harbinger for the Navy Drake, but there were all damage drones on the field here. No Logi drones, no ECM drones, but the Vidra tempo with these Navy Drakes and Drakes just got ahead of the Hydra team and took this first match.
Well, it once again, like the Drake, you don't want to shoot it in the beginning, but if you don't kill it in the beginning and you lose 3 battle cruisers, that becomes a fucking issue, because those things are just so the passive regen and the tank on them alone becomes a problem, and we cover that at the last match of the day.
Yeah, that's different from like a Navy Brutix, which is going to have that hull tank, which is pretty deep, but it's not going to regen at all.
You have a certain ratio. You have your DPS per hull point ratio in an attrition comp like this, and what you're really looking for is you need to, Well, like in any comp, but you need to shoot things that do a lot of DPS that are very flimsy on the tank, and that's why you see bombers primary a lot. And I think the Gilas in this scenario are your good first call. You want to bring down those Gilas, then those Feroxes, and then you need to start working through the Drakes. I think the calls were made correctly, definitely from the Vidra side. Just maybe there was something about fitting or drone choice that would do it. I could see them definitely bringing forth a bunch of Valkyries and Warriors for their drone setups, just because how could they expect to see a shield Octodad Frankenstein's monster comp like this? But I definitely think that Hydra made the right choices on field.
But here's another fact too, that every one of those ships along the line, except for the Vexes on Vidra's side, has an innate shield resistance bonus. So like your normal EM hole that those harbingers would be hitting, it's kind of self-plugged up a little bit. You throw an EM ward on it, put a little heat, you could really cut down the damage of that harbinger line from Hydra as well, across those Navy Drakes, and just drag it out. You're not gonna survive, but you're gonna just drag it out for those missiles to keep applying, and they never stop. You can't nuke them off. The only thing you really can do is jam them. You can't really jam them out neither, as I discussed earlier with the FOFs. So like it was a good choice, a setup here, and knowing their opponent from being practice partner.
So just clarification on score here, Vidra Reloaded was coming out of the winner's bracket, so they come with an inherent game-in-hand advantage in this best-of-5 matchup, and Hydra was coming out of the loser's bracket, so they have to win 3 matches here in the finals to take it. And obviously after this first round, 1 + 1 equals Vidra up by 2, and Hydra down by 3, so this is sudden death now for Hydra as we move into the second match. Vidra Reloaded banning the Guardian Raibisu and the Oneros. No Armor Logi, same bans as the first match. Hydra Reloaded banning the Rook, the Falcon, and the Brutix Navy issue. Same bans, correct? Oh no, different bans from Hydra Reloaded. Vidra Reloaded bringing the double Navy Harbinger, double Brutix, double Ferox, double Vexer Octodad setup. Hydra Reloaded bringing the Atana Widow Tinker with double Widow, Atana, double Gila, double Stork, double Manticore, and a Nemesis.
I think in this match we really got to see kind of what I was talking about earlier with how well ECM can work against these Octodad comp, because if you're looking for basically this attrition with really high DPS, the best way to limit the effectiveness of that is to take some of their DPS off field for a little while through the ECM while you're killing other DPS and taking it off the field permanently, right? And I think we saw that very well with the Shield Widows here.
Did you cut out? No.
Didn't think I did.
Okay, sorry. So once again, bombs landing from the Hydra team, or Hydra team landing them on Vidra. The Atana was webbed, but he got away. Harbinger is the first to die for Vidra. And then the Widow was threatened pretty heavily here, but the Atana was able to save it as the jams controlled the DPS. And at 7 minutes and 15 seconds left on the clock, Vidra was down 4 of their 8 battlecruisers.
There's something to be said about when you come in and buff a tank ships versus bombs. What bombs do? They take off the shields. You remove a quarter of the armor, 60% of the armor. So now you have nothing replacing that. So when they get turned on, it's just a quicker go down for those particular ships. And not to mention the bombers apply very well to the battlecruisers in the time that they're able to stay alive with that Atana, which is just a beast of a logistics boat.
Also, these Tinker comps that have the Atana, they tend to have, or the Octodad comps seem to have problems actually taking them down. With the Bassi, it seems to be pretty doable. But with Atanas on field, it becomes very difficult. It's even difficult to take out these bombers, because how you fit the bombers when you have these tinkers is your mids don't have any utility in them at all. It's like you have one or two, I think it's like one medium shield extender and then a bunch of resistance, maybe another smaller medium shield extender if you can fit it. But it's just all resistance, all tank, because you need to keep those alive and then just do as much DPS and take out as much of the enemy as you can in the time that you can live.
Yeah.
This tinker works very well against the Octodad lineup on that, just due to the fact, this specific version with the Widow, due to the fact that it can neutralize some of the damage line, mitigate damage without, like you said, temporarily remove on the Atana. So everything's tankable. They can't power through. If you get 1 or 2 jams, Atana's living through the tinker, and then you're going to have, by the time the jams come out, you will have erased one of those structure or buffer fitted battle cruisers, and then the control just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it turns into a giant snowball effect, and it's over. That is a really strong tinker when paired up against the battle cruiser line.
I think the Atana had a good play right off the initial setup here, knowing that the battlecruisers were going to go for the bombers. He had 1 rep on each bomber, and didn't manage to save the Nemesis by the end of the match, but manages to save the initial Alpha on those bombers, which at like 500 plus DPS per ship are great application for their points value.
Yeah, that's pretty huge.
Well, to clarify that one, Hydra Reloaded took that one 100-3. Putting us into a 3rd round. Hydra staying alive. Round 3, Hydra versus Vidra. Vidra with the Guardian, Raibisu, and Oneros bans. I mean, if you banned it twice, why would you not ban it the 3rd time? And Hydra Reloaded banning the Drake Navy issue, the Drake, and the Vexer. Is this baiting them into the Octodad? There's got to be some high-level mind games at this point.
I thought, like, while I was watching this, I just kept thinking, all right, they're baiting them into thinking that Vidra's bringing their bastardized version of the Octodad comp again. And then, like, I kept seeing Octodad variants pop up, and I'm like, come on, they're baiting so that Hydra tries to form a counter to something, right? But like, it just didn't turn out to be bait, and they just kept banning it all the way through.
So I don't need to read the list twice here, because these teams brought the exact same setups. 2 Navy Harbingers, 2 Navy Brutixes, 2 Harbingers, 2 Brutixes, and 2 Punishers. Exactly the same across the field, full mirror match. This is what the commentators were waiting for. They were really excited about it. What did you guys think of this match?
I like to think that Hydra just said, "This is our comp. We fly better." That's what I like to think. But always fun to see mirror matches, because you do get to see who makes the first error. You can really blame that person. Like in baseball, the person who misses the fly ball, it was his fault. Like, it's always fun to watch that.
Yeah, it was a pretty even match. Obviously, Vidra had the difference, though, between the setups, which I forgot to note here, is that Vidra had tracking disruptors. So trying to out-tinker and out kind of theorycraft the Octodad setups, but it was outplayed by shout out to Lord Anubis, the Harbinger pilot from Hydra Loaded, who MJD'd to safety, avoiding his own death, completely delaying the damage, probably pulling away those damage drones for a few extra seconds, and gave Hydra a little bit of extra time to apply some more damage while he slow-boated back into the fight. And by 8 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock, there's only 90 seconds into this match, Vidra was down 3 battlecruisers to only 1 of Hydra's. And the momentum was pretty set in at that point.
Rote learned during the feeders in our final match against CO2, where they brought Gnosises with a bunch of tracking disruptors, that tracking disruptors don't reasonably affect like these Navy battle cruisers or battle cruisers with 2 tracking computers. And I feel like the tracking disruptors were a bit of a misplay on the Vidra Reloaded part, because you're just not going to have a reasonable effect with those if you're removing mid slots from some of these ships for those.
Yeah, and a scram in this instance is worth its weight in gold versus ships that are micro jumping away from you. That tracking disruptor doesn't stop that guy from catching a beacon or clicking his own micro jump unit, micro jump module
So
to safety.
Yeah, with ECM, like, well, let's just go on either or. Like ECM, you can fit for it, but you can't really outpilot it. With tracking disruptors, sensor damps, you can outpilot those. You can make up for those by position and by movement. So if they have those on you, they're wasting their slots. I mean, granted, look at the Harbingers on the Hydra side, and they had sensor boosters because it looks like they were expecting heavy ECM, given what their bans not banning anything out. But you can outdo that E-War unless it's just, especially now with it unscripted, you can absolutely outfly it and get close enough, track with them, and still do not full damage on targets. And against battle cruisers, there's no problem tracking those with another battle cruiser.
Just gotta get a little closer for your optimal. That's all.
Oh, that's one of the big things is that if you take off, say you put that tracking disruptor on for your side, and I don't have it on, I'm all tracking computers. In the beginning, when you're trying to get close, and let's just say you make a piloting error and you're burning in, I'm gonna hit you whether I'm disrupted or not. If you're not taking the right angle, and the angle's got to be pretty harsh with the battle cruiser to make it mitigate, because unless everybody's stacking up on me, I'm going to be relatively safe with my computers running. The second thing, your only people you're really protecting with those tracking disruptors at this stage are your punishers. Like everything else is going to get hit under 1, even 2 tracking disruptors on there. So your punishers are safe, but is that really an effective usage of your points with no logistics on there? Let's just say you're knocking off 10% of the DPS with the tracking disruptors. It seems kind of a waste of a mid. And like Voodoo said, a scram would have been great, but once again, you can't always meta for that. But it is a wasted mid against the battlecruiser hulls, especially under micro warp drives, ballooning up signatures. It's just you're not protecting any cruiser classes and below with those tracking disruptors. It's a nice idea, but it just doesn't work out very well.
Yeah, they're good on top of like your medium range boats. So like your Sleipnir that is controlled with a long range web. You have, say, a Curse who is throwing tracking disruptors on him. He ain't hitting shit that is not right on top of him. But for your tracking long range guns on Navy battle cruisers, if without massive webs controlling them at range, they're going to still apply. They can outfly them. They are good enough pilots to do that.
So that was that match. I mean, Hydra cleaned it up in about 5 minutes, taking the match 100-48 over Vidra and pushing us to the finals of the finals. Last game of the playoffs. Best match 2. Whew. I mean, it's so good. We are going to watch it here live on the stream. Please apologize for any technical difficulties. I'm going to spool this up, and we're going to enjoy this match for all it's worth, and then come back and discuss what we saw.
Welcome back into the final match of Alliance Tournament 15 with Vidra versus Hydra. I'm Rain, and I'm joined by moderator. Vidra bought double Navy Drake, double Gila, double Brutix, double Vexer, and Hydra bought the double Navy Harpy, double Navy Brutix, double Harbinger, double Brutix, and double Punisher.
Yeah, so we brought this one a little bit early in to kind of break down some of the warp-ins that we see from the Hydra team. So Hydra have brought their Punishers in at about 10 kilometers off of the center beacon. Most of the Vidra core has come into what is also the center beacon with some of what appear to be their Gilas kiting back at range, wanting to, with their Drake Navy issues, stay away and use their missiles to apply damage from afar. So Vidra, they want to avoid getting tackled by those Punishers off the bat. But they also don't want to waste a lot of time shooting those Punishers. They'd be rather trying to work away at the damage. Speaking of damage, look at that massive, massive attack bar we see from Hydra as compared to the rather minuscule one from Vidra right now. Vidra have to do an immaculate job at kiting and managing range compared to Hydra if they want to secure the win.
Yeah, and something else to point out is that both Vidra and Hydra have a very small control bar. Looks like Vidra has a little bit more control. It could be within those drones, it could be within their mid slots of the Vexers, but at the same time, it's still not a lot. We're not going to see swarms of ECM drones. We're not going to see swarms of tracking disruptor drones. It's just going to be a little bit more control than the Vidra team. And we have the match is now starting. We see the links going off, and immediately we're going to see people getting primaried and volleyed off the field. The Punishers are going in, and the Vexer is being primaried first, piloted by Nika Noiser.
Yeah, so the Vexers, they're wanting to get rid of the mobile drone damage. It's a rather easy target. Also, Nick Domar taking a massive amount of damage, armor going rather quickly. Is this another hull tank?
Yes.
It is another hull tank. So another hull tank out of Vidra working to their great effect as they are also dropping Randolph Sykes in the Vexer. Getting rid of the mobile drone damage, trying to prevent Vidra from being able to kite this one out.
Yeah, and it looks like he is attempting to burn, Nick Domar is attempting to burn to that mobile jump unit with a swarm of drones on top of him, but it did not work. And we see the target painter on the Brutix, piloted by Dorsarim, being the primary for the Hydra team, as the Brutix, piloted by Miyamoto, is being primaried by Vidra.
Okay, so right now, both of these Brutixes appear to be hull tanked, or possibly not. Dorsarim is dropping rather quickly as compared to Miyamoto, despite Miyamoto being the first primary. If Hydra can use this to continue to gain momentum, they'll be in a very advantageous position. They still have a much larger attack bar, and Vidra has no control bar. What that means is Hydra can freely jump between beacons, and there's nothing Vidra can do to pin those ships down.
Yeah, so if Vidra had any control, it could potentially be in scrams, preventing pilots from using those MJD beacons and getting away. And while that may seem kind of pointless in a match like this, because obviously you're not able to warp within the Alliance tournament, it is very crucial for these MJD beacons, which are used for positioning. And Knifey and the Harbinger being primaried on the Hydra side as he falls low. Vidra has already lost 4 pilots.
Yeah, so with this, Vidra does gain a bit of a tempo momentum. However, the Navy Drake is a primary, and they get scrammed another Drake. I cannot overstate how crucial that is. Nem and Nixor doing immaculate work in their Punishers, getting on top of the Drake, securing them, preventing them from micro-jump driving, and locking down the kitey ships that would try to project at range. Excellent work.
Yeah, and Vidra's kind of has their hands tied, because if they choose to shoot these Punishers, it's taking a lot of time and damage away from killing these Navy battlecruisers, which need to die if Vidra has any hope of winning. But at the same time, these Punishers are preventing them from being able to move across the field freely.
Okay, so we can see one of the Punishers has locked down a Drake. In a couple seconds, we're going to see another Punisher burn to secure either one of the Gilas or another Navy Drake. However, Water Ubersnell is getting dropped into armor rather quickly. We don't see any repair bots. It's all damage drones all the time right now. And even though Vidra does have more points, that Drake is getting locked down. He's getting primaried excellently. And the secondary Punisher has gotten onto Vluglas. Vidra have a total of 5 major damage ships. Right now, Hydra only has 4. Those Punishers have to do perfect work, and those Brutixes have to get in and apply maximum damage if Hydra want to get the tempo lead. So far, they're trading out Hard SP, who is not moving, and into Hull. If he's Hull tank, though, this is exactly what they might need.
Yeah, so the Hydra team is working through these Drakes and Navy Drakes, which are all shield tanked, and they are taking a lot of fire and a lot of time to kill them. However, exchanging that for these Navy Brutixes, which are hull tanked, or as people like to call, man tanked, it's going to take a lot of time to break through these Navy Brutixes, even though they only have structure left. So it's pretty much a DPS race between Vidra and Hydra to see who is going to come out on top of Alliance Tournament 15.
And right now, Hard SP, his heart is about to stop beating as we see the swarm of drones on top of him and the missiles pound into his hull, and he will finally break and die in just a second here. Meanwhile, Vluglas is locked down, and Cuckoo will be also one of the primaries. These Punishers are doing excellent work, but Vidra are doing an immaculate job containing range and doing massive, crucial amount of damage to the core ships of Lord Anubis. However, that Drake is dying rather quickly. Much more quickly than he should. However, again, Lord Anubis down into armor, and Vluglas finally pops.
Yeah, so now we have both the Gilas, where their damage comes from the drones, and then the Navy Drake with its missiles against the Navy Harbinger, the Navy Brutix, and the Harbinger. And I am watching, I believe it's a Nebula sitting on this MJD beacon and his Navy Harbinger. So the moment he starts getting primaried, he'll probably bait it for a while and then MJD to safety.
Right now, Hugh Bender is doing his very best, the untackled Gila, to run as far away as he can. Cuckoo will die. There's no way around that. However, The question is for Vider, can they just out-trade? Right now, they're up 5 points. If they can secure one of these battle cruisers killed, there's no way a single solo battle cruiser can deal with a Gila and a Navy Drake. Even if the Punishers can get on top, they do a rather minuscule amount of damage. They're here for the soul tackle, and it might have been the Vexers and their damage that has allowed Vider to take this tempo momentum.
Yeah, so we have both Casper and Nebula fighting against this this Gila, trying to score the points. Casper being chased by these drones as the next primary for the Vidra team, and he is attempting to, I would say, outrun the swarm of bots as well as trying to avoid the damage from the Navy Drake.
Okay, so we can see that Nixor did get a tackle on Hulite Bender. The Gila has a rather low amount of capacitor pool, and it wasn't able to run away. It eventually was going to run out of cap, wanted to save it for the shield hardeners. So Nexor and Nem are doing their absolute best, and Casper has to hang on for dear life and pound into the hull of Cuckoo if he wants to break. Speaking of things that are in hull, though, Casper is taking a lot of damage.
He is in hull, but he's sitting on this MJD beacon, shooting perfectly at this Gila. So the moment he starts falling, he will be able to MJD away, and Gila's using their drones for their damage. Obviously, we'll have to then fly across the field. Oh, I say that, and then he moves away from the MJD beacon. Maybe. Oh no, he actually he MJD'd, so he is now safe.
Casper now getting a successful micro jump drive, allowing him to pull range. So the only ship that would be in range to deal damage to this Gila will be the Punisher that's on top of him and the Navy Harbinger of Nebula 12.
Yeah, and the Navy Harbinger, I believe, seems to be the next primary. Actually, these drones are still chasing after Casper. I don't think Vidra realized that he jumped and that he's now safe, so they're sending their drones after him. And Cuckoo is now structure is dead. So now there's only one Gila left, one Navy Drake for Vidra, and it looks like Hydra may be able to win this DPS race.
Hydra is going to have to do a lot, though. You never regenerate any sort of hull damage or any sort of armor damage. The one thing that these ships do have for advantage on Vidra's side, even though we don't see any sort of a rep bar, they do have a passive tank. Well, it's only maybe 100 damage or so. With this much left on the field, it's enough to secure a lead. And look at that Vidra defense bar. It's much larger than the Hydra defense bar. Their attack bars are roughly equal, but Hydra still has that control, securing the Navy Drake, and Hulite Bender now has capacitor to burn to range, getting out of the long-range damage of both the Navy Brutix and Navy Harbinger. And Casper is dipping into lower and lower armor, missiles and drones continuing to pound into what remains of his hull as he is dripping lower and lower.
Yeah, and it looks like he may be potentially trying to burn towards another MJD beacon. However, it's pretty far from him. I don't know if he will make it at all.
Okay, so if Casper can burn away from the Gila and the Navy Drake and get out of drone control range, the Punishers have them locked down. If Casper can survive, Hydra can try to time them out and score a win against Vidra that way. If they can do that, this would be the greatest win we'd ever seen. Casper's pulling up his micro jump drive.
He's at 10%.
Going to try
He's
to pull
10%
range.
structure. He's at 10% structure.
If he pulls this off, Hydra has a very real chance of taking the victory that way. And he secures it. He pulls range immaculately.
No, he died!
Oh no! He landed at 123 kilometers in his inertia took him outside of the arena. So if Nebulous can kill this Navy Drake, Hydra still has another chance. If they can kill another Drake or a Gila and survive, the Punishers, those 2 points each, will give them a point advantage.
So the Drake is about at 33%. He's at a third of his shield. So he the Nebula may be able to break him. May be able to break him because these Navy Drakes are shield tanked. You can see it dipping into red as he's taking more and more damage. However, Nebula is also in half armor, and he obviously, I would say, is probably not structured tank like these Navy Brutixes, but at the same time, it's just a pure DPS race. These two Gilas, or this final Gila will bring much more damage than the Punishers.
Nebula is sitting on a micro jump drive beacon himself. The Gila drones have just now come across the arena to get on top of Nebula. So Nebula, what he wants to do is jump in the direction of the Navy Drake of Pandy and finally finish off the remaining shields. If Nebula can do that and kite out the Gila, Hydra will win on points with a minute and 30-something seconds left.
I was gonna say, Pandy is still taking damage. This Navy Harbinger is barely able to shoot him. But like you said, he has the MJD beacons only put him 100 away, so he can't get out of range of being able to shoot him, or they're just going to sit and lose.
Yeah, this is a nail-biting match for sure. So far, it looks like one of the Punishers is taking a little bit of damage from what must have been the high slots. We see missiles coming across the field from that Navy Drake into Nebula. Nebula, however, is only armor tanked. His hull is bleeding rapidly, and what that would mean is that Vidra, even though there's a minute left, I think it's fairly safe to call this, Vidra Reloaded have absolutely done what no one has ever really succeeded before.
Nebula's
Last year
gone.
they came top 6. This year they will win the Alliance tournament, slaying all the heads of the Hydra. So, Tuskers got rammed, Pandemic Legion got slammed, MC Dot got jammed, Vidra going absolutely ham and winning their first Alliance tournament ever.
And as Elise Randolph would like to make fun of them, they are doing it with both Drakes and Navy Drakes, and we have good fights in local with everyone just freaking out about Pandy being able to hold off in his little Navy Drake, just killing the rest of these Punishers. That's
yes,
the match.
by virtuoso of securing more points at the end of the match, Vidra will be the victors of the Alliance tournament, securing both 25 of each of the aforementioned ships, worth nearly 8 to 9 trillion-isk roughly between these two teams in prize ships awarded. The Punisher choosing to Sudoku himself at the end. And with that, we will send it back to the desk as time expires to break down that micro jump dive play and many others. Thank you for joining us for Alliance Tournament 15. I'm moderator, joined by Chocolate Rain.
Well, there you have it, folks. Probably one of the best matches of the AT. So tight, so close, right down to the wire. You saw it there. The finals of AT15. Boys, break it down.
That was a really fly match that really kept me on the edge of my seat. I haven't been in this game during an AT that was so close in the finals. It was just such an amazing match that was secured by a clutch play by Casper to Tokyo drift himself out of the field to an extent, but Drake's won. That was pretty interesting.
Well, here's another component to him making that micro jump with the Casper making that Navy that Brutix Navy making that micro jump there. Not only did he pull out a damage range of the Vidra team, he pulled out of his own damage range and allowed the Drake Navy to actually survive long enough to actually pop him, get some get some shield regen going, maybe pull a little range on the Navy Harbinger that was left, and that missile damage doesn't stop. You know, you can continue to shoot out to almost 80-90 kilometers with heavy missiles. So really, he didn't pull out of the Navy Drake's damage range, but he pulled out of his own his own optimal range, allowing the two Vidra pilots to live longer. So I mean, it was a catch-22. I jump and I live for a little bit longer, or I stay and I put this damage on the ship and try to break his passive regen. So I mean, he was in a tough spot.
I'm curious how that would have played out if all of the Hydra BCs would have been hull tanked. Because you could just see the Brutixes, they hit the hole and they just stopped. But the Harbingers, they just kept plowing right through.
Yeah, they'd be faster then too.
Well, early on when they make the Brutix swaps, they made note of the fact that Hydra, got through a Brutix faster. But here's the thing: the guys shooting the Hydra guys still had a Brutix left when both of their Brutixes were down. So while they went through the Vexa, the Brutixes on Hydra side, both of those were gone, and those heavy missiles, even though you got a pretty nice about 100,000 hit points on a Brutix, those heavy missiles just take chunks out of whatever they hit. They're a volley weapon, so you're just watching chunks come in every volley that's coming in from the Vidra side.
It actually looks like the Brutixes were in fact full tank.
Yeah,
3
the Brutix,
bulkheads, damage control, and then 2 mag stabs with 3 medium transverse bulkhead ones.
so the Brutixes were hull tank. What about the Harbies were definitely armor tanked? And I think the question was is if the Mars ships were hull, would they have survived longer? I really don't. They would have been faster, and that would have been a big advantage for maybe range control. But they were having trouble chasing things down. You would have been less concerned about keeping range to try to mitigate some damage, to try to avoid the drones. So you'd have your higher DPS crystals loaded, and you would have been maybe smashing through that Drake a little quicker. It may have ended the other way too. It's really a catch-22. You have that, we were talking about the Brutix trades for the Vexers. If you don't kill the Vexers, then you're scrammed and you're controlled. Maybe there's newts on the Vexers as well. So, it's kind of a catch-22 on what do you do. I don't think there was any problems with the target calling. I do think that he may have jumped his first jump a bit premature. Stay there and help put that Gila down a little quicker. Put a little damage on there. Maybe jump when you've actually taken 2/3 of your hull before, instead of jumping when you've taken about a third of your hull damage. Maybe wait a little longer and put a little more applicable DPS out. It's just hard to say. It was a really good match, and honestly, what made it really good for me was the announcers' engagement in the match. The match itself was technical and it was fun to watch from the flying perspective, but there was a lot of good energy from the announcers that really, made it more enjoyable. If you were to take them out and their attitude, I think the match is much more bland.
Yeah, they were both very excited at the outcome. I mean, they were obviously super adrenaline hyped and they were stumbling over a couple of words, but when you really get excited into something like that, it takes a long time before you're a professional kind of, Stanley Cup or Super Bowl level commentator and you're able to walk through a play-by-play without stumbling over your words or mispronouncing someone's name. They did a great job and it made it a lot more fun to watch.
Not to get lost in the washes. Congratulations to Vidra. I mean, they went through only really dropping any matches to Hydra in the whole tournament. They stayed in the undefeated bracket the whole entire time. They executed their game plan. Looks like pretty well what they wanted to do. They brought some some high end, high tier comps that were very hard for other teams to deal with, even with the extra ban in the last 2 weekends. With the ability to flex on a Rebisu or a Chameleon or the double Widow comp. They were able to and the Octodad comp. They pick your poison. How do you approach this Vidra team? They Paladin is very solid. I believe Lucy Lou's part of that group.
He is. I don't believe he was on the team this year, though, was he?
I made the comment on Reddit he couldn't commit.
I mean, even though there are certain pilots in these matches, you guys can attest to that these are group efforts. There are a lot of people doing theory crafting, doing logistics, putting the work in, being practice partners, contributing to these team victories, which are more than just pilot execution on the field. Not to sell the pilot execution out by any means, but it was a real team effort to get to where they are.
It's chain. If any one link in that chain breaks or doesn't do its job properly, then the chain's not going to be very useful in any job that it would have, right? Like if the logistics don't happen, then you don't have comps to fly on match day. If the piloting is subpar, then even though you have the comps to fly on match day, they just fall apart. If your theory crafting is weak and you have the comps that were poorly theory crafted, but and you have the really good pilots to fly them, a weak comp still isn't probably going to win the match.
Well, Vidra Reloaded taking AT-15 championships. They're 15 cruisers, 15 frigates.
Yep,
Yeah.
should be about 6 to 8 bill market value.
Trillion.
Or yeah, trill.
So one more thing to add in is that if you haven't been in the AT, it's exhausting, especially on these days where you have to wake up and then your whole day you're mentally being tested on what are they going to ban? Hey, what do we theory craft? What do we have for this? What if they ban this? And you start second guessing. And to Cyclo's point, it is you can theory craft poorly and you're probably going to lose, and then you can over theory craft and make your comp too complex and you're probably going to lose because you're going to be like everything needs to execute perfectly. So to get to this level, you have to find that perfect seam and just run it the whole way, because one little fuck up messes it all up, and a lot of it can be mental. If someone stays up too late, someone has a hardware failure, someone a real life issue happens. You're trying to coordinate people across all the time zones in Eve. I know we have people in Australia and people in Germany that we were trying to coordinate with. So there's all these little steps in here, and it is mentally exhausting as well as can be physically exhausting too. These matches take place, at least for me, starting sometimes I have to be up as early as 3:30 in the morning to make the first match if you're early in the morning. And other times you have to sit and wait.
For sure. And I'd like to take this opportunity before we go into full-on shoutouts to thank everyone at the CCP headquarters, everyone at the Event streams, all of our commentators, all of our pilots who put in the months of effort to make a great Alliance tournament. Hopefully next year I'll be in more of it, so I'll see it from the inside, or maybe I'll look to be a commentator. Who knows? But thank you for everyone who put this Alliance tournament together in 4 weeks of amazing content, and amazing to watch, amazing to commentate on, amazing to speculate on. Maybe next year my brackets will be better. Thank you all, everyone who worked their asses off on your free time. Nonetheless, I don't think anyone was paid specifically to do this work. Maybe Logibro, maybe. But thank you all for putting in your time. And with that, maybe we'll go to shoutouts. We'll start at the bottom, and Sakaras. You want to shout someone out, pimp out something, tell us to go watch something, or maybe just say hi to your mom.
I don't really have any shout outs to anyone in particular or any videos you need to go watch, but I will say that in the spirit of the AT, like everyone who, from the feeders forward, everyone who was there, like, thank you for providing the content to Eve. Thank you for creating a next level of meta and experiences. To the bros that flew with me, like, you guys were awesome. You did a great job. Look forward to doing it again next year. Practice partners and everybody else, thanks for being there, and good work to those guys who won and took home the big prizes. You guys deserve it, and you make it that far. You guys did awesome. Other than that, like, that's really it.
Great. Hels.
Yeah, just keep it at Hels. I want to give a big shout out to the announcers on all 4 weekends. I think as we went through, you could see them definitely improve, get away from the memeing, and get actually down to the actual commentating of the matches. I want to give the MVP out to Rain, because she kept that sort of composure for both weekends, or actually all 4 weekends, excuse me, and for all of her matches. She kept that very professional, and actually what I would expect from a presenter.
Beautiful. Cyclo?
Yeah, I just have 2 shout-outs first. Or I have 1 shout-out and one little infolet for anybody who's watching the podcast, who's looking to get involved in the AT. Look around for alliances as early as you can that tend to get themselves involved in the AT. It's really the greatest PvP experience you'll ever have in EVE, the most even fights that will make you feel good about the game and keep you interested and get you to have a lot of fun with it. And the second, I believe Mind Clash actually has a YouTube channel, so be sure to follow Mind or subscribe to Mind Clash on YouTube, and definitely hit up that Twitter at the top of the stream, and go ahead and follow Kael Decadence and Meredudd on Twitter.
Man, the hype is so nice. King Voodoo.
Yeah, just I want to thank our team this year, for sticking through. It got kind of rough, with some of the things that happened this season. It's a very competitive deal. If you're into any kind of sports, or you're competitive or whatever, you should really be prodding your alliance leaders to get you into an AT match. You get we was talking to some of the guys in the lobby here early about having honor brawls. This is the best honor brawl you could have. You got a set of rules. You show up. You can only bring so many people. Get involved. Get involved. It's not very hard to sign up. I think the feeders were an amazing success this year, and going into next year, get involved. Like, you'd be surprised at what you can pull together when you work at it and kind of look at what's going on. But shout out to the Mind Class podcast for having us 2 weeks in a row. Really enjoyed giving us a voice on the AT. and enjoy the looking forward to doing this a little more in the future with some of the other tournaments and all that they have going on.
Yeah, thanks for our Alliance Tournament panel, everybody who came out and commentated and put the time in to watch all those matches. I know I tried my best, and I know Kael tries his best, but not this week. Didn't try his best this week.
Let's not forget one person. The person who made that 3D tool. Like, shout out to you, man. That thing's awesome.
For sure. All the tools. Logibro, all the guys who worked on it behind the scenes. Amazing.
Squiz over at Zkill for the advanced search option.
Good stuff. I mean, yeah. I think we've had a show on just third-party developers, but we could easily have a couple more. Thank you all. Next week we will be back into a place where spaceship losses are paid for and go on someone else's kill board. It may involve capital-sized ships. I hear there's some wars brewing. I'm sure people want to hear about that. Stuff in the south, stuff in the north. You'll hear about it all next week here on Mind Clash. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next week. 7 p.m. Pacific time here on Twitch or in post on YouTube, on the podcast, anywhere you can find podcasts. And thank you. We'll see you next week.